So welcome to this second class on the principle of axis of length. Now, this principle is, as I've said on other occasions, but I'm saying it again in case this is your first class, this principle is about recalling the kind of bodily fact of the human design, which is more vertical than it is wide or deep. And so we tend to live on our 2 feet, standing, walking, locomoting forward, having this experience of our length, in which the spine is organized in the direction of gravity, right? It's sort of like perpendicular to the earth from the feet upwards to the head, more or less in the direction of gravity. So we can explore this principle of the axis of length to come into an awareness of our whole body relative to the right side and the left side, the front and the back, and those differences, right? Because obviously we have maybe 2 arms, 2 legs, but one might be stronger, one might be more dominant, one might be the one that you use for writing, the one that you always put your bag on first with, the one that you always step forward with. So the symmetry right-left is, not going to be totally symmetrical, and that's totally fine. Same with the front and the back, so we have more of the senses on the front of our face to be able to kind of see in front of us. Our hearing, obviously, and the fact that we can rotate gives us access to the space behind us, but we don't walk backwards so often. We don't engage with the backspace with the same level of detail. Like I never, brush my hair down here. It's, in the front of me, or behind me up here rather than down. So these kinds of, the fact that we have a front and a back is there, but we don't use them the same. They don't have the same kind of equal participation in action and in the world. And then the same with the upper body and the lower body. The lower body is more this carrying structure, right? It's got this strength to connect us and propel us on the ground, and the upper body has far smaller shoulder joints, to be able to rotate, to see more things, to have a huge range of motion, to be able to kind of communicate and express and discover and probe the world with the upper body more so than the legs, but the legs also have that capacity to explore and shift too. All right. Our work today will be to carry on playing with the awareness of the whole of our bodies and exploring the parts in relationship to the whole with this principle of the axis of length. And sometimes we'll play with that axis as more of a stable notion, whatever that might mean. And sometimes more of a mobile structure, right? So how that whole length can bend or condense or collapse even, bring it back up to vertical. And we'll explore that in standing and lying, crawling, rolling, the usual collection of actions. Please bring yourself to standing. Standing on 2 feet. Feet don't need to be touching, they can be a little bit wider. And if you want to stand even with your feet slightly externally rotated, if that's more comfortable, do so. For now, I'm going to stand in parallel. Take a little bend and straighten through the ankle joints, through the knees, through the hips, rolling the shoulders. Taking some moments to arrive in standing. And with your eyes softly open, if you're keeping your eyes open, no need to kind of stare at the screen or at anything in particular. Your eyes can be soft, with a sense of seeing around the peripheral vision rather than one thing in front of you. If you'd like to, you're very welcome to close your eyes to sense how your body is standing on the ground in this moment. There may be some subtle weight shifts going on already. That's fine. Don't feel like you need to hold yourself still. In fact, do hold yourself still just for a moment. What is the most still you can be? And then let that go. If you do it a few times, you'll start to discover where in your body you grip to make that stillness. And that means perhaps those areas are just very, very active and very strong, which means other areas might not be as strong and as activated in this kind of balance of your musculature. So that's why having a soft, shift over the weight over the balls of the feet and into the heels might allow some muscles that like to dominate to let go a little bit. And you can emphasize that a little if you wish by shifting more onto the left foot or onto the right foot, towards the balls of the feet, towards the heels. You might take a little shift from the back, the right heel to the left balls of the foot. So this is more of a diagonal across. It's a base of support of 2 feet that gives us a few different options of how we can mobilize our axis of length over these feet. Left heel to right ball of foot. And as I do this, I can consider how the bowl of the pelvis and the architecture of these bones can also be part of this, gliding. And I might notice the movement through my chest, or at least my chest moving in space as I do this. And that my head and my view, if my eyes are open, that view subtly changes. If your eyes are closed, then your view doesn't change, but you can sense that you're in a slightly different place. And playing for yourself in your own way, shifting across the soles of your feet. And if you shift a little bit far and you need to step out, then bring yourself back in. It can be quite interesting sometimes to see what your maximum is in this regard. How far forward can you shift your weight over your feet before you need to step? And in that moment, before falling, you might again notice that gripping, this wonderful reflex of your body to hold yourself. A very useful reflex, sure. But sometimes if these activations of gripping and holding are happening a lot, we can end up with some more tension or, as I said before, some muscular imbalance, so that some chains of muscles might not be working as efficiently. And our focus here isn't to find an optimum of the most efficient or the best. Keep it as an exploration for yourself. This is not about being bossy. So in your own way, shifting your axis of length, forward, backward, sideways, maybe even a little circle. Ball of left foot to left heel, to right heel, to right ball of foot. And these can be soft. And you might notice that it's perhaps easier over one leg than another, or finding the front of the balls of the feet is easier than finding the heels. Falling into the back space might be less familiar. And then if your eyes are closed, gently open them. And take a little walk in the space that you have. Noticing the weight shift from foot to foot and how the length of you can be carried in space very easily. And you might try a little exploring of stepping sideways or even of walking backwards. So there's a sense of the whole body traveling. You're not really leading from any one part, right? You're not kind of sticking your chin out first and taking your axis of length that way, or leading through the chest. Sense of the whole body shifting in space. And it's possible you've heard or seen images of this idea of a plumb line dropping through the center of the skull, between the bridge of the nose and the back of the skull, or kind of in front of the eye, or behind the eyes, through the roof of the mouth, through the throat, through the chest, through the ball of the pelvis, and falling somewhere in between your feet. Now, this idea of a central axis can be useful so that you get a sense of your right and your left and your front and your back relative to it. But we're walking, we're moving all the time, so rather than considering this plumb line as something you need to keep fixing yourself stably to, how can you simply carry this length with you? And as I said before, we will have different asymmetries. Each individual body is unique. And so this idea of the central axis can be held really lightly. It's not a goal. It's not something to kind of force yourself towards. It's something that might give you information. That's all it is. Taking the arms up as you walk, starting to carve the air around you. So what do I mean? Shaping and moving some imaginary mist around you. As you do this, it might end up having a particular colour. Finding some more mobilising of the arms now, the limbs of the arms that can continue this axis of length if we wanted to go upwards, but equally there could be out in front of you, behind you, to the sides. And your spine and your head and your tail can start to mobilise a little bit more. Starting to wake up more of the joints of your body. Allowing this carving of the space around you to shift you from one foot to another foot. Using this to take some deeper breaths. Maybe exploring balancing over one leg. Connecting to yourself, connecting to the ongoingness of your body, sense of fluidity, sense of stabilising whilst moving. This theme of mobility, stability being a constant companion. Noticing how your length can now condense a little in the front of you, or to the sides. How the length of you can also find more of the back space. One more minute of this in your own way, expanding into the space around you, shifting the weight, connecting to breath, connecting to flow. This ongoing exploration of body as space, in space, with space. Okay, let's take this axis of length, folding forward, getting small in the front space, walking your way out onto all fours. And when you arrive, we can now experience how our axis of length can stay long on all fours, but is now in this horizontal dimension relative to the room and relative to gravity. And from here, with spine, we can mobilise head towards tail, tail towards head. And opening the front of the spine. Finding this sagittal flexion and extension through the vertebrae. Elbows can be soft. Couple more of those. And then we can find some lateral condensing, finding this head coming towards tail in the side space. And I'm not turning my head, I'm trying to stay parallel with the ceiling, but like a accordion, playing on one side and opening up the other side. And so here we are finding more of the vertical plane in some ways, as we find this side-sidedness. And then let's come to sit. So with legs out long, you might want to adjust your legs at a certain moment. We'll play with a little bit of traveling to lie on the side and come back up again, finding more of this side-sidedness through the spine, through this relationship of the head and the tail. So obviously this connection of head-tail is crucial in our axis of length, right? So this vertical throughness of our body was organised from the feet, through the legs, into the torso, into the skull. And now we'll explore a little bit more of the spine part of that. And we can take the head over to the side, and your hand can be there to support you. I'm allowing my pelvis to come off the ground, and then I can re-find pelvis into the ground to restack my spine. So here we have more of a successive sequencing of head going first, then the rib cage, then the pelvis. I'll go to one side, and then I'll go to the other side. A little pouring of the weight. And if you don't feel like going that far, you could even just go a little softer and not shift off the pelvis, that's fine. So I'm trying to imagine here my pelvis and my lower spine stacking before the upper spine, and then the upper spine begins. And I might find that I can release through my legs a little bit, or maybe they're starting to hold tension and I need to jiggle them out a little bit. Okay, so that's one version. Let's try another version where pelvis goes first, and then the rest of my spine follows. And then let's do pelvis going first from a push of the arms to return. So the return is the same as what we just did, but the going there is slightly different. So I'm initiating with a little kind of lateral pelvic shift, delaying with my skull to lay down my spine. Head comes last. And then pelvis leads. And then back up again. So I keep shifting around so you can see it from different angles, hopefully. Sense of pelvis leading. So I'm definitely quaking a little bit on one side to prepare my pelvis to then lay my rib cage down, and then pelvis leads to bring me back up again. So with my eyes, I'm trying to keep the horizon for as long as possible, right? And then here, I'm not trying to find the horizon until the last minute. And then go back to the first version of head leading. And then let's see if our head can lead to bring us back up again. That was quite weird. So head leading. And then head leading to bring you back up again. Head leads. And then eyes claim the horizontal horizon. And then leads. So there's a kind of snaking of the spine, head to tail, tail to head that we were activating there. And let's take this down onto the ground now, lying on your back, and find heel rock. So the action of flexing and extending through the ankles, including legs within this experience of head-tail connection now. A vertical throughness from feet through the lengths of the legs. You can always add a little flexion through the knees if that's more useful to feel the rock through torso, through pelvis. And so our vertical throughness still has a bit of this sagittal flexion. Things are rocking forward and back. And check in with your jaw and your tongue. Releasing through the muscles of the face. And then choose another tempo. If you started very slowly, you might go a little more quickly. Or if you're starting quite quickly, how is it to go a little bit slower? And if it starts to become more sensation than you would like in the lower back, let's say, you can bring your feet to flat and explore pressing through the soles of the feet to make this rock happen. Still exploring your axis of length, but now with legs bent. And pause, take a little recuperation, find some stillness. Allow your body to be held on the ground. Allow gravity to do its thing. And your body can let go into gravity. And we'll restart the heel rock, finding right at the end of the exhale, legs rolling to parallel on the weights of the heels, finding that gentle inner axis between the inner heel bones, inner thighs, through pelvic floor, through the psoas muscle, through the spine, through into the skull. And then allow one leg to go passive and take a heel rock just with your right heel. And you can adjust your arms whenever you like. You might want them a bit higher, a bit lower, palms down, palms up. That doesn't matter. Right now, the emphasis is on exploring the right heel rocking. And you might find that that right hip wants to do far more than when it was two legs rocking. So go ahead and indulge that. See what that feels like. You don't have to try and hold your pelvis square, you know. You can move, that's fine. But again, if it ever becomes more sensation than you would like it to be that feels comfortable, do less, go slow, pause. You can always bring that right leg to bent also, that's fine. The left leg rather to bent. And I've got my hands on my rib cage because I quite like feeling the difference between the sides of me as I do this. And then switch to the left heel. Set that rock up. Right leg now passive, upper body coming along for the ride. And seeing if that left side of pelvis might mobilise a little bit more. So recalling that the pelvis has these two iliac crests and the sacrum in between, and these two joints at the back where obviously they're not designed for a lot of movement, right? This is stabilising the keystone of the pelvis and the base of the spine, but there is still some movement there. And if these joints don't get to mobilise enough, sacroiliac pain is a quite common occurrence for some people. And this action is now asking these joints to move in relationship to the leg, in relationship to the heel. And then go back to 2 feet and see if you have a sense of the same force from both legs, or is one leg somehow steering, somehow stronger. And then pause whenever you want. Take a recuperation. You might want to bring knees up, give them a little hug or a little rock from side to side. Sometimes the heel rock, it can be more comfortable lying on a squishy mat or a blanket. So exploring heel rock one more time with 2 legs. You may feel even less symmetrical than you did before. I feel like the floor is tipped. It's not actually straight anymore. I feel more asymmetrical, but that's okay. You might feel more equal in terms of the force coming through the legs. Whatever your observations, great. Obviously, if it's painful, don't bother, back off, pause, do less, do nothing. But using this opportunity to do some repatterning, which is this reworking of the musculature through the body to see what else can happen. So these moments of unfamiliarity are quite useful for giving yourself some new experiences. Okay, let's go on to our slide. How easy or difficult this is will be discovered. So how is it to find a heel rock? Well, it's more of a ball of the foot rock, so it's more tucked under through the side. Can you find some sort of push from the balls of your feet to send a rock through pelvis, through to skull? And then you can switch it to the top arm and find a rock, this time from the palm pressed on the ground. So this is being more steered from the shoulder girdle, and this one's being more steered from the legs. And I'm adjusting my arm because I was getting some strange sensation under rib cage, but you can equally do it with the arm extended. And you might find that your greater trochanter, this knobbly bone at the thigh, is starting to complain, so you might want to roll forward onto the thigh, and it becomes more of a massage for the quadricep. Okay, try the other side. This is to illustrate that your vertical throughness exists in multiple orientations, and to give you some information about the flexion through the toes and through the metatarsal. So this is the ankle flexion, and the sort of suppleness through the feet is how the rest of our walking is going to be informed, right? So the way that the foot hits the floor orients. So how can you find a rock here from the outside of the left foot, or the outside of the underneath leg, and the wall of the top foot? And then you might try and find it with the arm activating palm into shoulder blade. So this palm scapular connection into shoulder girdle, into rib cage. Good, that's enough of that. Let's find a heel rock in reverse on our back with our arms now. So rather than the heels steering, it'll be the heels of the hands. Now this particular shape for the arms might be really uncomfortable. So if it is, I'll give you another option in a minute. But if you can get your hands behind your shoulders, palms kind of on the ground, elbows bent up, how is it to press through the heels of the hands to find a rock from upper body to lower body? So vertical throughness now orientated from upper to lower. Now if that's uncomfortable, right, and having this major flexion in the fronts of the elbows isn't very nice, you can try your hands the other way. You could try fingertips on the ground. That's also possible. Or you could try one hand. And find that kind of asymmetrical rock that we were doing earlier. Two at once is pretty good for now, and then you can feel more of the up-downness of the heel rock with this new initiation. So vertical throughness, organised from the arms, is quite uncommon, unless you're doing lots of handstands or press-ups and things. Give it a break, take a little wriggle, refind heel rock, and then let's roll over to the front. Bring your forehead to your hands, tuck your toes, and let's find a heel rock on the front surface. And then once that's clear, take a pause, release the toes, and you can bring your hands, your forearms to the ground and find, again, this rock through the upper body. And feeling the legs responding to that push of the upper body. And then you can tuck the toes and find a conversation hands to feet, feet to hands, pressing back and forth. And so your vertical throughness now has more of an extension in the front of the spine. Eyes finding the horizon, coming into the kind of back space of your kinesphere. And then you can go down again, take a pause, and if you like, refinding this vertical throughness in line with a heel rock, or with a ball of foot rock. Good. And then from here, let's press up again, coming into all fours. And then come again to sit. And you can sit cross-legged, or you can sit in this kind of figure four position, sort of. And taking the head over the shoulder and not moving the rest of the spine. Take a few moments to scan the horizon. A few breaths here. And then let's refind head leading, shoulders following, rest of spine following. And I'm allowing my pelvis to move. My feet are having to kind of push a little bit on the ground, and then I'll come back, pelvis through into spine. Head leads, ribcage follows. Pelvis leads, ribcage to head. And if you do that in a kind of this position, you're already slightly tilted with your pelvis, so you can feel when you go that hip coming forward. And you can bring the hip back and unwind. Head leads, ribcage follows. And I'm not really hanging out there. I'm not using it for like a static stretch. It really is more of a sense of what's behind me, what's behind me, what's behind me. Oh, nothing's behind me. Okay, I'm going to come back again. And if you wanted to stay there and stretch, you could, sure. That feels nice for the front of the thigh, but it's really more about experiencing your axis of length rotating kind of around itself and what that spinal head-tail connection does into the pelvis and the lower legs. And then let's find, whilst we're here in this shape, let's find head leading, supporting on the right forearm, take some arm circles. So sensing the axis of length now on this long diagonal relationship, mobilizing through the length of the arm. And you can find maybe some space for the rib cage.
Is the emphasis here on trying to find length in the axis, or
So
is it
my
very
lower
collapsed?
body is stable, and I'm finding more of the upper body mobilizing. I could do it and find more of a rolling sort of forward and back here, right? But I'm keeping my lower body quite long and using this opportunity for a bit of arm circle, allowing more head and spinal rotation. And I can obviously feel when my hand is really over my head, the length from my fingertips to my knee, which maybe we don't always emphasize in arm circle so much. Okay, and then pelvis can lead to bring you back up to sit. Let's take hands behind you, and soles of feet can find the floor and find a knee drop to the other side. And I'm just going to spin round so you can see me. And let's find that spinal rotation, head leading, rib cage following. And maybe this little sagittal and lateral pelvic shift through the pelvis. So my pubic bone is going to come forward a little bit, and I can find a rotation. And then I can come back around my spine. So this feels more like it stays on my axis over my pelvis, and then I can find a little shift to give me more range behind me, and then my pelvis can lead me back again. So it stays head, neck, shoulders, and then at a certain point I can take it into the pelvis, and the pelvis leads to bring me back. And then we can have head leading, bringing the spine down, finding some arm circles here, finding the length of the navel center to pelvis into legs, staying fairly stable as you can mobilize upper spine, head, shoulder blade, palm. And I'm enjoying feeling the length above, at a height above me. So the length from my fingertips to my knee. As I finish moving in the front zone and then I go into the back zone. And I can find that in the reverse direction. And then let's pelvis lead you, bring you up to sitting, fingertips behind you, knee drop. Just sit. Let's take that a few times. So knee drop, bringing you to sit. And then let's extend the legs. And let's find a little journeying to the ground through this side condensing of the spine where the legs can lead you. So we're finding kind of falling into the back space, rolling across. Arm circle brings you up, pressing yourself to sit. Condensing through the one side. Here we have this shifting across the pelvis. Knees bend, you can find knee drops the other side. Upper body follows, arm circles around to bring you up. And there's a wall. Condensing. Arm circling. Lower leading, upper following. Finding the vertical. Taking your axis of length through the side in your hemisphere into the back space. And then back up through the side. Head leads. And then knees lead. Head and hand follows. Bringing you up. Good. Okay, let's take that into just simple X's and O's here. Hands, feet, head and tail all condensing into a small ball and unwinding. And you can start to play with your X's and O's. By changing your base of support, you can roll onto your side and onto your front. And carrying on rolling front and side. Finding the simultaneity of everything arriving together and expanding together. And you can feel how spine really can get involved in this. It can really condense and constrict, and well, not constrict, but get smaller, right? Take up less space. But you could equally do this action without allowing your spine to flex at all. You could just bring your arms and legs in and keep your axis of length very long, actually. So you might want to give yourself the experience of that if you never do it like that. And so maybe there's some rotation through the spine, but rather it's just simply turning. It doesn't have to even separate in terms of lower into upper. You could have the whole spine simply turning from one side to the other Arms and legs extending, and then go back to finding the use of the spine to sense more into how this axis of length arrives and then shrinks. And let's add on a little body half action. So you can take X and O to one side, and then body half, leg extends, brings you to sit. And then you can find upper body leading and lower body following. Whole body condenses to the other side. Body half leads. Body half leads, upper body followed, leads, and then lower body unfolds. Core distal. Body half, upper and lower. Or radial symmetry, we can also call this. Body half leads. Carry on that arm circle, and then the lower body unfolds. Okay, doing that a couple more times, right and left. And let's bring ourselves to all fours. If being on your knees becomes uncomfortable, you can tuck your toes and bring your knees off for this. That's totally fine. But for now, if you can, slide the left knee towards the hand and then slide the left hand forward. Right knee comes with you, then right hand travels. Spine staying fairly long in between as you do this. So we're sensing this relationship between the sacrum and the shoulder blade on the same side. And you can also find it traveling sideways. Opening right side, closing left side. And you can also find it going backwards. Hand initiating into sacrum if you're going backwards. Okay, and if you haven't tried it on your toes and you'd like to, go ahead and do that.
Sorry, which one opens and which one closes?
So if you're going
which one opens?
If I'm on all fours, I might go right arm and right knee slides to open, and then my left side closes.
Oh, okay. That's what we were doing? I thought we were moving forward.
We were, but I gave it an option of traveling. So that with your axis of length, you can carry it forward, you can carry it backwards, and you can carry it sideways.
Oh, okay. But when you're carrying it forward, and you said that the sacrum one side opens, what do you mean?
No, when you're traveling forward, it's more that one side of the sacrum is more active. It's not that it really opens, it's just that that's the side leading. So if you see from the back, this is hilarious, but like I got more that side and then the other side. It's not as if the sacrum is opening and coming forward, it's just that one is...
It's not about the curvature.
No,
it's not like the spine curve.
You could go forward if you wanted to and really consider head, tail, side, side, if you wanted, but you don't have to. You can travel forward with this body half through the, or attempting to be more body half through the limbs, and keep your spine quite stable in between. Okay, let's go into more of a cross-lateral crawl. So This time, leading with the hand and allowing the opposite knee to come forward. Or if you're going backwards, leading with the knee and the opposite hand can come with you. And if you wanted to play with that one, hands and feet, it's totally fine. In fact, you could take it in different directions. And here I feel like my upper spine is in that similar kind of extension that it was when I was in this position. There's definitely a sense of my upper spine seeing out in front of me rather than drop down. If I drop it down though, if I'm going backwards, I can see where I'm going. But if I'm going forward, it's more useful to be extended. And I can also play with it in this shape if I wanted, as a body half or as a diagonal across myself. Quite awkward, but possible. All right, going back onto all fours. Occasionally bring yourself not quite to your verticality, but a little bit off the ground with your hands and then back into the ground. Maybe just one hand comes off and then reverse that journey. One hand can come off. And then maybe two hands can come off and then go back into the ground. So it's about really scanning the lower space and then returning towards it. And so you're not really losing your sense of connection with the ground, even if your hands are coming away from it. And I'm stepping behind myself because that's the space that I have, but you might travel forwards as well. And then next time you come off the ground, allow your eyes to come up to see and take a walk. And so you're more in this spatial zone that we tend to spend more time in. But you can easily, whenever you want, take your eyes a bit lower and allow your axis of length to come down to the ground and give yourself a little scurry around and then come back up into walking. See the ground, see that whole kind of horizontal of the ground, lower into it, soften knees and ankles to get there. Coming back up again.
And Ali, is there any way that you, when I do that, I feel like I compress my breath, I can't breathe, I hold it. Is that I'm overstabilizing or something? I don't know.
When you see the ground and bend your knees, breathe in. And then when you go to place your hand on the ground, breathe out. And then breathe in to come up. See the ground, breathe out. Breathe in again. Hands to ground, breathe out. Breathe in to come up. See the ground, breathe out. Keep moving. Breathe in to prepare, breathe out to travel into the ground. So slowing it down a little bit and giving yourself a bit more time to prepare with breath, but then to make some...
Yeah, that was great.
Good. Good, then do that. Let's do that for a little bit longer.
I don't understand why it doesn't come natural.
Because it's...
But I'll ask you later.
I was teaching it quite quickly, and so slowing it down and making it more precise and more conscious with the breath can then make it more supportive. So don't worry that it doesn't come naturally. It's yeah, it's good for me to remember to slow it down, pause. And that shaping and carving we were doing earlier kind of echoes itself here, but now I'm way more interested in bringing my axis of length lower towards the ground. So inhaling, exhaling to travel into the ground, and I'm going to inhale to bring myself up, exhale, see the space, inhale again to prepare, and exhale. If I wanted to, I could come to sitting, back into crawling, back into walking. And when you are in walking, and we'll just carry on that flow in and out of the ground. When you are in walking, remembering occasionally to pause over 2 feet, or pause on one leg. Finding this, traveling into the ground, shifting weight, pressing into the earth. And then when you come out of the earth, finding this vertical throughness, remembering all that potentiality of the low zone for you to move into. You can even find it traveling next time you come out of the ground. Let's bring arms up overhead. Finding your axis of length with a bit more height into the up space. And then that length can condense. And I'm condensing in the front zone in this forward aspect, but equally you can find the work that we did through the side. That might be useful to play with. Pelvis coming down to the ground. Or head leading. And then the next time you're down, coming back onto your back, and let's refind heel rock. See how that senses, how you sense that now. And whether you feel any difference between right and left side. We did quite a lot of lateral condensing and work through pelvis, so you might notice there's some differences. And I'm playing with that rhythm where my right foot flexes first and my left follows, and my right extends and my left follows. So it's this pattern to find more of a circular feeling in my pelvis, or left could start. So really indulging in the circularity of this and the asymmetry, right side and left side, slightly different in timing, in direction, mobilization. Pausing on the ground, allowing your body again to release into gravity. Rolling to one side, pushing yourself into a small ball, little crouch over the feet. And then we'll pour the weight into the hands, send the pelvis high. Bending through the knees, pressing into the feet to roll up through your spine. Unfolding axis of length, coming to stand. And we'll take a few moments standing, sensing how you sense your body now. Letting go of any holding through legs, through pelvis, through belly. Can you be supported by the ground here? Sensing the back of you and the front of you, sides. And you might have a little shift going on. That's totally fine. If you're standing more still, trying to find where you can let go a little bit through your body. How can you find yourself in standing with the least amount of muscular energy as possible? And then let's carry the axis of length to the computer for a chat. If you have any questions or insights, feel free to share them